minutes.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to the April 2025 regular board directors meeting of the Santa Cruz Metropolitan District. We will begin with our safety briefing from Gregory Strucker, our Safety, Security, and Risk Management Director.
Thank you. Good morning. Just want to give everyone a brief safety rundown on the different procedures we have. So, for example, in the event of an evacuation, the main evacuation route from this room is directly behind the board of directors here in the single door. You go through that door straight out to the outside. It's just one straight hallway. And then our evacuation meeting point is next to the street where the parking lot meets the street in the driveway right there. Secondary evacuation route, if that evacuation route is no longer available, is the main doors directly behind me. You'll have to go down the stairs. Do not take the elevator in the event of evacuation. You go outside the front doors, and the assembly area for the evacuation is the same right next to the street. There's a little sign there that says evacuation assembly area. Is anyone in this room CPR certified? If you don't mind raising your hand. Thank you. We also have AEDs available downstairs in the lobby that you can use in the event of a health emergency. Thank you. Any questions?
We'll now conduct our roll call.
Director Downing.
Here.
Director Dutra.
Here.
Director Cullen Terry Johnson.
Present. Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute.
Director Koenig.
Here.
Director Leonore.
Here.
Director Lynn.
Here.
Director Martinez.
Here.
Director Newsom.
Present.
Director Orbach.
Here.
Director Keyros Carter has not joined yet. Director Rockin.
Here.
Ex officio Director Northcutt.
Yeah.
Ex officio Director Riskin.
Here.
And we have form.
Community television of Santa Cruz County is broadcasting today's meeting, and it will be available on their YouTube channel next week. 4.1, Susie Magana is providing our Spanish interpretation services today. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, I'm Susan Magaña. I'm the interpreter for today's session. Si alguien necesitara servicio de traducción o necesitara alguien explicado de la agenda, por favor, déjenos saber al comitado para que podamos proveerle asistencia. Gracias.
Are there any comments this morning from our board members?
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. I wasn't here last meeting, so I want to touch base about what happened in the meeting before, because it didn't sit well with me. And little did I find out later that the rail trail people were talking to a lot of the members behind the scenes. And then we received emails the night before that I did not receive. So I showed up to this meeting blindsided because I had no idea what was going to happen. When Rebecca originally, and I want to say thank you to Monty Chevra and Rebecca for supporting me that day. When Rebecca asked me to sit on this meeting on the RTC, I originally said, I said, well, has the rail trail said anything? Has it been, have people wanted to try to, really stop me from getting on the RTC? Because there is a history of the rail trail people being really hateful and dirty towards me. And this isn't just this last election. This goes back to elections where they created websites about me and my parents. And so there's a history there. So when I didn't hear when she was like, no, nothing's happened. And I'm like, okay. And then my city manager's like, well, we really need a strong voice from Watsonville. Will you make sure that you consider doing this? And I'm like, I really don't want to do it. I mean, I look at the drama that happens on that board all the time, even though the person came up and spoke and weaponized sexual assault. That's exactly what he did. And he's on the board for the rail trail. I went back, I looked, this was so set up. And I look back upon this thinking, what a hateful moment for those of you involved in it, right? Those of you that had conversations behind the scenes with people, that was just hate. And I came into this really blindsided. I had no idea because I didn't receive the emails that you all received the night before from rail trail people. And that's not the government that I'm going to lead. So I'm going to continue. I won my election by 11%. I know some of you are very upset that I'm here. I'm sorry. That's, the people sent me here to really be a voice for them. And I would have gone to the RTC. I didn't want to. I even shared that with Rebecca and with my city manager. But I know that, we needed another voice from South County. And so I said I would do it. And then I show up to a meeting and really, the way some of you really treated me was really awful. And I sat here defending myself, not knowing that there was behind the scenes work that I later found out about. And so I don't know. Listen, I sit and reflect all the time on, the actions that I take as a leader and the person I want to be. You guys, if you don't do that, that's fine. If you want to play games and let people come up here and threaten whether they're going to remember you when it comes election time, I don't do that. If the moment that people don't want me here, then they can elect. They don't have to elect me. But I still got here even without the rail trail people support this last time or any time. And it's because I take a position that is going to be what's right for my community. That's what I was brought here to do. And I'm not going to play games, even though I got blindsided by a lot of you. I'm not going to do that to you guys. There's no reason that any of you, I've ever done anything to any of you personally. I get it, it's politics. But I think that, there comes a line where we have to really decide how far are we going to go when we treat people. So that's all I have to say. I had to go and I really had to think about what happened the last one in January or February, whatever that was. Because in that moment, I was just so filled with conflicting emotions. Because I couldn't believe how I was, there was a coordinated kind of attack on me. And then using the excuse of we want more women on the board when I'm like, okay, I'm a gay man, there are 0 on the board. So it just really didn't make any sense to me, If you really truly believe, stand your conviction. Don't use excuses, I know how it feels to be, a minority and running on boards and in city councils. And but I don't ever play a victim. I go out there, I do what's right for my community. I just wanted to share that these how I feel, because it didn't sit right with me. We are a board here to serve our people. I left that meeting. I ended up working with Freddie and we worked on the garbage cans for Watsonville and I want to say thank you to you guys, wherever you guys are, for doing that. I continue doing my work for my community because that's what I was elected to do. And so, so thank you, Chair, for that moment.
Any other board comments? Monica.
Thank you. I have an additional comment. I had the opportunity to visit the Big Basin State Park recently. And as many of you know, Big Basin, 95% of it was destroyed in the fire and in the CZU fire. And there's been a major recovery effort going on up there with state parks. And the state park system was incredibly grateful to the Metro for providing bus routes up that direction and also it being a part of the design of the future recovery of Big Basin. I'm really excited about the potential of having additional bus routes up into that part of our district and into the park because it's a really exciting partnership opportunity to kind of open access to the state park system to folks who don't otherwise have access. So thank you for those who are behind the scenes encouraging this partnership, and I look forward to supporting that moving forward.
Any other comments from the board?
Yes. This past Monday, we had the opportunity to walk around the facilities and meet a lot of the administration from Metro. And thank you, Corey, and to your team for giving us that presentation and learning more about what Metro is doing, like you said, behind the scenes. Because there's a lot of people that work together to bring our services to our county, North County and South County. So thank you, Corey, for putting that together. And Bart, I'm trying to remember the Bart.
Margo.
Margo, there you go. Thank you, Margo. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from mechanics to drivers to the new buses that are coming to our county. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Alta.
Students are voting for their election. Next week, we'll start our election at Cabrillo, and that will be our transportation referendum to determine if they want to keep the metro. I want to thank everybody who's been coming and tabling and kind of getting out the vote and being present on campus, both the Aptos and the Watsonville sites. Just want you to know that we will have the results Friday. I'll be up counting. So the results should come in Friday. It'll be announced at our May 8th board meeting, but I will be sending an email to let y'all know ahead that the draft if it passes or not. And then I also want to let everybody know that we are scheduled to break ground and we'll start our leasing applications for Vista, which is the name of our housing at Cabrillo, in fall of 2026. They will open it up for applications and then we will start leasing for fall of 2027. It will be below income level, so some of the rents will be about $1,000. And we are scheduled for like 2% increases depending on the unit that you're in. We have a little bit more leeway with our UCSC students because of what median is considered there. But just want to keep that on y'all's radar. Fall 2026 housing applications, and fall 2027 we will be welcoming our first set of tenants.
Any other board comments? Only.
I just want to echo Director Lenar's comments about how wonderful the orientation was on Monday. I really appreciate the brief from all the heads of the departments. I learned a lot. I'm feeling very optimistic and just grateful to be a part of this organization. I really believe in the vision of Metro, and I'm excited for the work ahead.
Okay, any other board comments? I just have two. Jimmy, thank you for your comment. I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm grateful that you're still here and you're still a part of the board. And even though you're not on the RTC, you're a part of Metro and you represent Metro. So I encourage you to let the RTC reps know your opinions when they attend their meetings, since you do represent this organization meetings. So I'm also announcing that I'd like you to save the date. This is a save the date announcement for A Week Without Driving, which is running this year from September 29th through October 5th. Metro, the Community Traffic Safety Coalition, and the County Department of Development and Infrastructure are coordinating promotional events leading up to this week. We began last Saturday with a kickoff at the Earth Day celebration in Santa Cruz, and we'll finish our kickoff this Sunday with a booth at the Watsonville Earth Day celebration, which will be from noon to 3. And our booth will be next to the Metro booth. So come and see all of us and learn more about A Week Without Driving. And if you have more questions or want to know more about it, just contact me. Okay, we're on to item 6, which is oral and written communication to the board. This item is set aside for directors and members of the general public to address any item not on the agenda, which is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. No action or discussion shall be taken on any item presented, except that any director may respond to the statements made or questions asked, or may ask questions for clarification. All matters of an administrative nature will be referred to our staff. Each public comment is limited to 3 minutes or less. If you have a comment, go to the podium. Brian.
Hi, Brian People, Food Trail Now. We're a local advocacy group for building the coastal trail. First of all, Jimmy, I'm sorry that happened. I didn't even know about that. And I think you're referring to more of the train people and not the rail. So make sure people understand that you're the attacking you were more the train active people, not the trail. And I have no idea. We love you. You're a great supporter. So we're on board with you. I'm going to talk about two public comments that we've made. Included in the agenda is a response by Trail Now. Also, Jack Brown made a comment concerning Mike Rotkin's letter that I want to talk to as well. So first of all, Capitola Trust City Council voted to uphold Measure L, which is basically now we have to do the interest rate. And part of that dialogue that happened there, we did a non-disclosure information request and found some of the county actually lying to the council. And so that's good news for us in the sense of moving forward with the trail. The thing I want to talk about is the letter that Jack Brown sent in response to Mike Rotkin's editorial. And what happened was Mike continues to basically have propaganda and make false claims about transportation policy. The idea that we can afford a multi-billion-dollar train is unrealistic. He continues to make claims about it, calling it a recreational trip, when statistics show that it is a transportation resource. And that's what the California Transportation Commission recognizes it as a transportation resource. And so his views are detrimental to Metro. And that's the message we're trying to say to you, is as long as you keep having Mike Rotkin giving false claims that we're going to have a train one day and making these false statements, that's negative Metro. And that's what I'm here for, is Metro. We like Metro. We want to support Metro. We know that you have some budget issues coming up. The last thing you need is to have the public view you as not understanding transportation. And when Mike says that he's going to have $1 billion train, that's unrealistic. And so we are asking Metro to stop the rhetoric. Stop the rhetoric. We can't continue to have Mr. Rotkin keep making these false claims. It's not good for Metro. Okay? It's not good for Metro. So we're asking Metro to start focusing on real transportation solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, board. Nico. I wanted to offer some comments about board attendance equity and just like how we can get more representation here. I'm a UCSC student, and so for one thing I wanted to offer was One thing I wanted to offer was just talking about having a route directly to the board meetings, like the pick of students. I thought that it would be a very good expansion to be able to include more people into the conversations. One of the emails that were included in the board packet, I think it was item 6.2.1, was talking about some of the issues around the Metro service and having buses pass people at the bus stops. And so I wanted to be able to have those voices heard at the board meetings by just being able to either expand a bus line to pick people up or to have the marketing team create a video or material that can show people how to get to the board meetings and how to access either the service tickets, the Metro board meetings, or just in total, like who to talk to when trying to make a service request or complaint. But I don't want to bombard you guys with complaints just because I'm trying to expand the equity. I want to be able to like expand just how good the Metro can serve students and serve people in general. And so, yeah, wanted to offer that. And also, I wanted to tackle the volunteer bias of like how people can show up and just exactly like who is being heard at these board meetings. It's 9 to 12 on a Friday morning. that's usually a school time. That's usually class time. I mean, I have 9:20 to 10:25 classes. I have 11:20s to like 12:25 classes. And so I wanted to keep that as a reminder of like who is able to come to these board meetings. Luckily, I was able to like get out. I didn't have class today, but I usually do. And so this was a good exception for me, but there's definitely many students who would love to talk to you guys and love to meet the board and just be able to talk to you guys directly and get answers that can be easily answered and build that kind of relationship between people. And yeah, also wanted to say that I support trains. I'm not one of the train advocates from the group, but I think trains are good. So I support that, Mike Rockian. Thank you.
For sure, in here. I just wanted to show you some pictures I took recently. I took these,
Speak up.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to share some of these pictures I took recently of the temporary downtown hub. Well, the new metro station's being done. I took these Monday, I think somewhere around 5 o'clock. Here, area 1 is just, I think it's really great. There's a lot of room there. You worked really well with what you had to make everything workable there. And then if we can go to the next one. Area 2, I don't have a picture of, but it's also very nice because there was already a lot of sidewalk space there. That's area 3 that I just talked about. This is area 2. There's a bench there. That's the bench that was originally there before we moved metro stations around. And as you can see, it's really close to this tree. I have to slow down my wheelchair to go through it. And 99% of the time, I have to ask one or more people to move. Sometimes those people have a bicycle. And so it sometimes takes a good 3 to 5 minutes to just be able to navigate through there. And then if you go to the next one. This one is down by area 4, where you can see the sign. The metro sign got put very parallel or perpendicular, I don't know, to the light post. And there might be engineering reasons for that. I don't know, but it really does. It creates a problem with moving around and so on and so forth. And given that this is where the 17 Express stops, when it's within 15 minutes of when the bus is supposed to show up, there are a lot of people there. So that's all I have to say about that right now. Thank you.
Do you have any online comments?
Yes, we have David Dean online. David, can you hear us?
I wanted to ask the board the new bus on shoulder facilities that are now becoming available. I haven't seen any discussion or anything in the past agendas or the meetings that I've attended about how they're going to be used and what routes will use them. Currently, there's only 3 routes that are relevant. The 91X, which unfortunately is canceled at the moment, Route 1 and Route 73. And Route 1 would only be using the facility at the Rio Del Mar exit. Route 73 can only use the facility that will be built at the Bay Porter exit. And there are 4 different exits where no route will be able to use them at this time. Soquel Avenue, 41st Avenue, Park Avenue, and State Park Drive, because the buses exit at those exits. So they don't actually use the bus on shoulder facilities there. And so I was just kind of hoping that the board would take some time to inform the public what the plans are. It doesn't have to be today. It can be an agenda item for another meeting. But I just wanted to let you know that the public is concerned, wants to know. We're a little disappointed that there hasn't been any communication about this to this point, as far as I can tell. I know there are difficulties because if you want to use the state park and park, then then the bus route would have to skip Cabrillo College. If you wanted to use the ones at 41st and Soquel, then the bus route would have to skip Live Oak and Capitola. So I know that there are logistical issues here, but I just want to be better informed, understand how these facilities will be used. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any more comment online?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I want to respond to the comment by Ryan Peebles. I guess I can appreciate Ryan advertising my column and Lookout. I stand by the column I wrote about the rail trail. I don't think there's any factual misinformation in that column. There are differences of opinion between Matt Brown and myself about it, which he's of course welcome to his opinion. I have my own. I have to say that not a nickel is coming out of transit money for that train. And we Measure D had various buckets that determine how much can go to various functions. And the train studies are all coming out of the train's 8%. Been a strong fighter to protect Metro's share of the money from Measure B, make sure it doesn't go to the train or the county roads or anything else. And there are constantly fights about that. And I've been a strong advocate for Metro on that. So that's all I want to say. I think people can read my column and I'll stand by it. And people can disagree about opinions, but I don't think there's any factual misinformation in that column. Thank you.
Well, things. First of all, just to correct that, we actually typically where we see transit and the rail money compete is in the consolidated call for projects, the RTC. We did see $2 million of transit money get diverted to the rail study in the last, I think it was 2023. And so I fully expect there to be further competition in the future between the rail project and operations here at Metro. And then the other thing I want to say, we're just responding to the student. I don't see the time of this meeting changing, just because as you can see, it's pretty logistically challenging to get this many people in the room. And so to do so probably after hours would be difficult. That said, personally, I'm more than happy to find an off time or another time to meet with students who are an extremely important constituency for this agency. I'm happy to make that time. In fact, it's just those kinds of meetings with multiple members of this board that I think led to the Youth Cruise Free program, and that consists of high school students. But yeah, I'm more than happy to make myself available, and I'm sure other members of this board are as well.
Yes.
And as well. So City of Capitola last Thursday had a very contentious meeting discussing the Park Ave alignment of the Coastal Rail Trail. Ultimately, we were given 4 different interpretations of a city ordinance that was Measure L in 2018 that passed by 200 votes, 52 to 48. And the council unanimously voted to interpret it in a way that will keep the trail within the rail corridor. Now, as we all know, the trestle is owned by the RTC. That interpretation of Measure L does not mean that the RTC has to pursue the interim trail. I just want to be clear and clarify that statement. The RTC will continue to move forward with the Coastal Rail Trail project, segments 10 and 11. And they will continue to study the zero emissions rail project. Now, in the future, if the board of the RTC determines that the project, for whatever reason, is not feasible, or they want to take a different direction and want to pursue rail banking, that is their decision. But I just wanted to clarify that that is not the plan right now. Thanks.
Yes. So a process question. written communications that come to the board under this item sometimes have responses and sometimes don't. And I'm wondering, I guess, why that is, and should the board, could the board get responses to communications that don't have responses in the packet? The reason I'm asking is because often communications are from students on campus or are relevant, or reflect similar kinds of complaints that I get. So seeing the response from Metro would be helpful, I assume, to the public and the board and communities.
When they come to us and then I forward them on, typically if it's regarding routes, then it goes to the planning department to respond. So as soon as I get a response, I forget which ones are in the packet this time. I can forward that on to the board members.
Don't are you saying sometimes if there's not time to add the response, but they'd still respond?
Right.
It's just that we may not get the response, so
Right.
you're following up with that and share that.
Great, thank you.
We have any comments from our labor organizations? Okay, and we have received one additional written communication that was sent to the board on the 24th, and that will be added to the agenda packet. Moving on to the consent agenda, where all items are recommended actions that are considered to be routine will be acted upon in one motion. But do we have any comments from the board regarding this or any request to pull an item for discussion? We now ask for public comments on the consent agenda. Do we have it? Do you have any comments? So a motion is required to approve the consent agenda presented.
I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Second.
Okay, Fabian and Mike seconding it. And so we'll do the roll call.
Director Downing,
Aye.
Director Dutra,
Aye.
Director Colin Terry Johnson,
Aye.
Director Koenig,
Aye.
Director Leonore,
Aye.
Director Lynn,
Aye.
Director Martinez. Aye. Director Newsom,
Aye.
Director Orbach,
Aye.
Director Key Rose Carter,
Aye.
and Director Rutkin.
Aye.
And the motion.
We'll begin our regular agenda with the presentation of our employee longevity awards. We have two today. One is for 10 years for Manuel Diaz, air transit operator, and 20 years for Ryan McDonald, parts and materials manager. Are either of you here? Would you like to say anything?
It would. Good morning. I was born and raised here in Factus, and I used to ride the 71 every morning to get to school and then to Cabrillo and work afterwards. I'm very proud of being a part of this organization and helping some youth like myself get to where they need to be every day, whether it's doctor or home or school or work. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We'll continue the regular agenda with our state legislative update from Sky, Yoder, and Schmelzer and Lang.
Madam Chair, I did want to just acknowledge, I think the gentleman who was sitting to my right, one of the other longevity recipients and may have been.
Oh, okay.
We're so quiet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to say thank you, for the opportunity Metro's given us. Cruz, I learned a lot there and, I learned a lot about the community also. And I was born and raised here in Watsonville and just taking Metro also as a kid in places, and it's a real team effort, you know.
Good morning. Folks, we're here on behalf of Shaw Yoder, Antwi, Schmelzer, and Lang. As we get underway, I want to first remind you of who I am, hand things over also to my colleague, and to just advance the slides here. Of course, I'm Michael Pimentel, been with Shaw Yoder, Antwi, representing you all for the past decade. But I'm joined today by my colleague, Brendan Rapicki. He's joined our firm at the start of the year and is now assisting you all in Sacramento in carrying Metro's interests forward in the state capitol. He'll be giving some remarks in a moment as we move through today's presentation. And so I want to start off and offer some observations that are big picture relative to the 2025-2026 legislative session. And so we are beginning the first year of the two-year legislative session that began on January 6th, when the legislature returned to Sacramento and members began the work of this two-year session. We had a bill introduction deadline that was on February 21st, whereby we saw thousands of bills introduced in the State House. We'll be touching on some of them here today. And what I wanted to note for you is that we are now very actively in a process of legislative policy committee hearings. In fact, every day this week, there have been policy committee hearings where the legislature has been evaluating legislation in an attempt to move bills to their next committees, whether policy or fiscal, with the requirement that bills with a fiscal impact to the state move to those appropriations committees by no later than May 2nd. And so what we are heading toward will be a series of impending deadlines, and then ultimately the end of the legislative year on September 12th. As is always the case, once that session concludes, the governor will have 30 days to act on all legislation that reaches his desk in the final days of session, and we'll have then a bill signing period that will close on October 12th. Now, with the start of the two-year session, we do see that legislative leadership makes appointments to the committees that will be overseeing the work of the legislature. This year, and for this two-year session, we will have the continuation of leadership by two leaders, Senator Mike McGuire, serving as President Pro Tem of the State Senate, and Assembly Member Robert Rivas, serving as the Speaker of the State Assembly. Of course, Mr. Rivas is a representative for this broader service territory, a member of your Metro delegation. What I wanted to call out here is that relative to appointments for those committees that matter most to Santa Cruz Metro, there is largely a rollover in committee chairships. But there are two that are substantive that have seen some change. The two are those flagged with the asterisk: Senate Budget Subcommittee number 2, Senate Budget Subcommittee number 5. Senate Sub 2 oversees the state's climate investments, things like cap and trade. Senate Sub 5 oversees the state's transportation investments, so you can consider any general fund appropriation impacting transportation, any broader conversation related to transportation at times can include policy. Again, under Sub 5, for both of those, we've seen a change in leadership. with Senator Ben Allen of Santa Monica taking the helm of Sub 2, Senator Laura Richardson of Los Angeles taking the helm of Senate Budget Sub 5. Relative to your Metro delegation, I did want to call out the appointments that your delegation have received to various committees. Here you'll see that there are a number of very well-placed appointments that have been made for Senator Laird, Assembly members Pellerin and Addis, whereby they have found themselves on very critical committees, including the budget committees, the appropriations committee, and then I'll note for you, Speaker Rivas only got one listed in his camp. That's because he's managing that house, does not routinely engage in committee work, with one exception, Rules Committee, which will oversee things like direction of bills and where they're ultimately going to be considered by the legislature. Now, in a moment, I'm going to be touching on budget, but what I wanted to also highlight is that at the start of the year, as a matter of practice, your CEO, Corey Aldridge, and I did make rounds with your Metro delegation to apprise them of your priorities for this year, both budgetary and policy, to make sure that they're aware of what we care about here at Metro as they consider legislation, consider budget appropriations in the coming year. So relative to the fiscal year 25-26, I will highlight that when this year started, we had a bit of good news. And that was that Governor Newsom was identifying a budget surplus, first time in several years where we have a budget surplus of $363 million. Of course, that's not a significant surplus, but a surplus no less. What we have seen, however, is that as the year has gone on, Governor releases budget on January 10th. We've seen a number of major developments take place that may challenge the state's revenues, may challenge the state's need to expend resources. Two dominant things: the LA fires, impacts that is having on a base of the state's tax revenue, and then also the introduction of the Trump administration, the challenges we've seen to various federal programs across all sectors, and the potential need for the state to step up and provide backfill for maybe lost federal resources. All that coloring the budget landscape in Sacramento, all of which will be in evidence when the governor releases his May revise that is his mid-year budget update on May 14th. That will reset our understanding of what the budget picture looks like. But what I'll say to you today is that the conversations we've been having in Sacramento, the budget picture is going to be far worse than what was presented in January. There was a very high chance that that surplus is now a deficit. A deficit may be in the tens of billions of dollars. And so that is going to require, of course, conversation around expenditures. Where might discretionary expenditures be pulled back? Because the avenues for new revenues. And so we'll know more come mid-May. We'll be keeping CEO Aldridge apprised of these developments. And then what we are going to be heading toward will be the adoption of the budget by the legislature no later than June 15th. Goal is to have a budget bill in place by the start of the fiscal year, that'd be July 1st. What I would highlight in this same breath, though, is we have seen this routinely in the legislature. They will pass a budget, and they will have to pass what we'll often refer to as a budget bill junior to make final adjustments to that budget that was adopted based on what will be changes in revenue and expenditure as the year goes on. And for this year, while there's not been any formal pronouncement of such a bill moving forward, I would indicate a high chance that that moves forward because of one dominant thing. In LA fires, one of the things that was actuated by the federal government and by the state was a delay in tax filings for residents of LA County for certain zip codes. That means we will not have a full indication of the revenues that we have available as a state by the time we adopt this budget. We will have to come back and do another update to, again, right size our expenditures, right size our budget expectations. Now, within that context, I did want to highlight for you that as we spoke about in the previous 2 years when I've been before you, we have had some success with the state in securing one-time expenditures for public transit. In 2023, through the work of the California Transit Association, partnership with Metro, we secured ultimately what was a $5.1 billion package for public transportation. Monies that are available to agencies for capital or for operations, monies that were intended to address in part the fiscal challenges that agencies were having coming out of the pandemic, trying to provide some additional relief once the federal resources that were provided through 3 rounds of federal relief subsided. That money moves out over multiple fiscal years. We had the first monies move out in fiscal year 2023. It is a 5-year appropriation timeline. And so we are now entering what is our 3rd year appropriation. Here, there is a commitment from the governor in his January budget to move that 3rd year forward. That 3rd year is comprised of what is a $1 billion investment in TIRCP. There is no indication at this point from the administration or from the legislature that there will be any backtracking on that. But of course, this is something that we're going to continue to monitor as the budget landscape continues to be challenged, as there may be a need to consider, again, cuts to discretionary expenditures, of which this is one. And so should this package continue to move forward on the timeline that is presented, what we would see is this region through the RTC receiving $35 million for investment in rail, transit, projects and services. What I would highlight for you is that if we're successful in getting that appropriation of the monies for the TIRCP this year, we'll have 2/3 of that money fully appropriated. Those out years, much smaller expenditures, much smaller than exposure to the revenues that will flow to the state. Again, against that context, and the difficult budget landscape that is being faced, there is a reality that the monies that were secured in 2023 are still not enough to address all of the funding needs that exist for our transit agencies over the state. And there was a particular acute challenge in the San Francisco Bay Area, whereby SF BART, SF Muni facing significant hundreds of millions of dollars in budget shortfall. And as a result, there's been a strong interest from members of the Bay Area delegation standing up and asking for some additional support. And so this effort, $2 billion being led by Senator Jesse Yadagin from the city of Berkeley, and co-signed and co-supported by Assemblymember Mark Gonzalez of Los Angeles, seeking $2 billion in additional support to go out to agencies statewide. We hope that we don't have confirmation through that SB 125 formula. That would mean that every region in the state benefits. The goal here is to make sure that there is enough money to address the Bay Area needs, while also recognizing that agencies across the state have needs that may look very different. For agencies like Metro, needs for operations. For other regions of the state, there may be a need to have additional capital money to do things like zero emission transition. Obviously, those things not necessarily mutually exclusive, but certainly areas of acute interest for regions differently. What I wanted to highlight on this slide is Metro has been vocal in supporting this effort. We're going to see at the very bottom right of this screen, it's a small little circle. That's the Santa Cruz Metro logo. We have to do these NASCAR letters. It's hard to get everyone on board, but we do have Metro included there. And then at the bottom of your screen, at the start of this year, there was a Senate Budget Committee hearing that was beginning to evaluate, set the stage for this conversation. One of the speakers, one of the presenters in long format was your CEO, Corey Aldridge, speaking about the needs of Metro alongside much bigger agencies, including LA Metro, way of showing that there are needs that exist for agencies of all sizes, setting that stage for future conversation with the legislature. Now, I'm going to close on 2 things before handing things over to my colleague Brendan. But what I wanted to highlight on this slide is a request that we've made at Metro of your delegation, particularly of our Assemblywoman Pallerin. And this relates to a need that supports your transition to zero emission technologies, recognizing that as you transition to zero emission technologies, one of the things that frames that transition, the difficulty, is grid redundancy. Challenges that can happen when PG&E is not able to provide electricity to your depots for any number of reasons. PSPS, wildfires, rolling blackouts. One of the things we've asked for is for some additional support to do solar, microgrid project here at the Santa Cruz Metro, something that can be added to your depots, help build in that redundancy. There are avenues for getting that money to Metro. through this clean transportation program at the CEC. Asked Assemblywoman Pellerin to be supportive of it. She's supportive of it. She's filed a letter articulating this interest with her colleagues in the Budget Committee. We'll continue to work with the Budget Committee members to help move this forward. And so at this time, I'm going to hand things over to Brendan to take us forward on a few bills, and then we'll open up to any questions if I have. Oh, I'm sorry, it's premature. Final conversation here, cap and trade authorization. And folks, here, what I want to offer as context is today, public transit benefits from a 15% ongoing appropriation of all annual revenues collected by the state's cap and trade program. That program is set to expire in 2030. So there are conversations about reauthorizing that program beyond 2030. Those conversations are very new, being really jump-started last week with a public pronouncement from Governor Newsom and legislative leaders that they intend to work on this year. The effort to engage on this front to protect that transit money and to hopefully make some progress in securing some additional funds being led by the California Transit Association. And I'll acknowledge my other role as executive director of the association, filed a letter to legislative leaders to Governor Newsom in December. We've been meeting with legislative staff to discuss these priorities, and we're building into a coalition effort to help bring those dollars home when this reauthorization process is complete. And so now really I will be handing things over to Brendan to take these forward. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So great to be here. As Michael mentioned, I'm Brendan Rapicki. I've been with Shaw Yoder, Anthony Schmelzer, and Lane for several months, but I come from about 12 years working in the state capitol, working on transportation issues, local government issues, natural resources issues, work very closely with the offices and staff and members of your delegation, know them very well. So just going to go over several bills that we've been working on tracking for Metro and other transit agencies. Thank you. First, Senate Bill 71, authored by Senator Scott Wiener of San Francisco. So this bill builds on a bill that he passed 5 years ago to exempt various transportation-related projects from CEQA, which of course we know frequently can be weaponized to slow projects down, increase their costs. So these are projects like bicycle pedestrian projects, bus rapid transit projects, traffic calming, zero emission vehicle charging infrastructure. So that bill had a sunset, right? They're trying it out, seeing how it worked. I think about 90 projects in that time have used this process to be expedited, right? Get online faster, be more cost effective. So this bill would make that law permanent. And it's a bill, as you can see, that Metro is supporting. Very excited about it. And has proceeded through its policy committees and is now at the Senate Appropriations Committee. And it will be acted on in the next few weeks. Of course, we are advocating on your behalf for the bill. Next, we have Senate Bill 752 from Senator Laura Richardson. This is a bill to also extend a current law. There is a sales and use tax exemption for zero emission bus purchases, expires in 2026. This bill proposes to extend the sales and use tax exemption to 2028. Really important. This exemption, we did an analysis, can save transit agencies $40,000 to $70,000 per bus. And that was an assessment from several years ago. Bus prices have gone up since then, so we'd expect that the savings would be more. So also a bill that you can see that Metro supports. That bill moving through the process and continue, of course, to be advocated on its behalf. Next, Assembly Bill 394 by the Assembly Transportation Chair, Lori Wilson. So this is a bill that stems from, really increased violence toward transit workers over the last several years. Transit employees that are been stabbed, spit at, assaulted, and the current laws protecting them have not, frankly, held up. And so this bill does two things. First, right now the law only protects its very specific transit operators. And so AB 394 proposes to expand that to all transit employees, right? Obviously, any non-operators working for transit agencies. And then secondly, the bill also would allow transit agencies to seek a temporary restraining order on an employee's behalf for someone who's a bad actor, has committed several or any sort of assault, to prohibit them from being able to access the transit system, to make sure that our employees are safe and protected. I'll note that this bill, of course, supported by Metro, but also is an example of a good collaboration between transit and employees. You can see Smart TV is one of the co-sponsors. So this is a bill that we're really excited to be working with them on. This bill actually this week passed out of the Assembly Judiciary Committee on a unanimous bipartisan vote, and now heads to the Assembly Appropriations Committee. So a bill that we're very hopeful and excited for. And then finally, Assembly Bill 1070 by Assemblymember Chris Ward. So this bill would have had some negative effects for transit district boards. And so you can see Metro and other transit agencies in the state oppose this bill. We've been working to oppose the bill, and this week the author pulled the bill from consideration in the Assembly Local Government Committee. And so we are not expecting that bill will move forward this year. And so just before we get to questions, of course, Michael and I are your advocates in Sacramento, tracking all, anything that comes up, representing you in committee hearings, meetings, etc. It's just a little snapshot of what we're working on. Thank you.
Take any questions.
Can you give us, that would be helpful for the members to go back to their agencies for timing of letters, where the letter should go, this legislative package. In other words, somebody from the Santa Cruz City Council, sure, they have the city council pass a resolution or whatever, send a letter, support of Bill X or whatever. Can you send us a list about that in terms of both timing and the direction of the others?
Absolutely, Director Rotkin. What I would note is that as we prepare your engagement in Sacramento and any of the bills that we just discussed and anything else that may be forthcoming, one of the things that we do prepare are draft letters for your CEO. We have been in the process of preparing those letters, asking for completion with the edits and additions that are necessary. Then we've been submitting. However, we can be providing you with more generalized templates and then include the submittal details, timeline, and direct contacts. In the work that we do on behalf of the California Transit Association, we're routinely in that line of work already. And so what we can do is just afford that to you all, make sure that we're coordinating with the CEO and disseminating that information to the board and any local parties that may want to be supportive or in opposition to a bill that's moving through the legislature.
Thanks. I'm thinking, for example, Bay Area effort to try and get money for talking about to include smaller cities that are not in the Bay Area, what our needs are. The letters from our various city councils and the county board supervisors might be quite helpful in that process.
If I may, I would just also note it may be always of value that as we're engaging on these fronts, if there is that desire to provide that additional local context with the various hats that you all wear, we can also find those opportunities and point them out for how you can be engaged with specific speaking points that would be valuable to land in conversation with your state representatives.
To be able to provide just a little more information about the grid redundancy funding that you're advocating for, like just specifically, I understand why we need it, but what's it do? What gets developed via this funding?
Yeah, so my understanding, and CEO may want to jump in and provide some additional context, but I think the consideration here is that we would apply for potentially up to $6 million to help support what would be solar distributed generation at your facilities. And that's a way of making sure that you have a backup to the grid. I think the anticipation is this would be part of a new depot project, but Theo Aldridge, if you want to jump in and provide it.
can talk to it on a really high level, which Freddie was here. This project's been talked about for a while, trying to put solar on top of our buildings, and trying to create a backup and try to offset our electric usage here as much as possible. The amount of it that we're talking about would equal kind of a microgrid. Just trying to soften our footprint as well as what we're using.
And Director Martinez, if I may, I would note that when we've seen other agencies move forward with these types of projects, they'll often advance them with an eye for that redundancy, but also for purposes of what we'll refer to as peak shaving. So just recognizing, right, we're paying time of use rates, we're electrifying our systems, sometimes ineconomic to charge at certain times. These types of systems allow for us to smooth some of that, bring down some of the costs. And then what I would highlight in terms of process, it's a bit of an attenuated process to get to exactly these monies in Metro's hands. You have to support the state appropriation. You see that approved. And then if the CEC does receive those monies, they would have to call for a competitive solicitation. We would be in a strong position because we've looked to position this with an eye toward the parameters that would benefit Metro, but there is going to be that competitive solicitation. And so that would mean that there is some timeline associated with that. We'd be looking to leverage the engagement from your delegation should we be successful in the program.
Great, thanks for that, Oliver.
Thank you for the presentation. I think you mentioned the $5.1 billion in terms of funding that's included in the 2023 budget. I'm hopeful that continues or is not pulled away. I want to say originally it was a 3-year appropriation timeline, and now it's been extended to 5, and that was kind of one of the governor's budget sleight of hands in the last budget. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so I'll offer some additional nuance because there are 2 different timelines associated with the appropriation. And so the initial appropriation in total, that which was passed in 2024 was 4 years, but I think what you're hitting on is what was a first 2-year timeline for the TIRCP investment. Last year when I was before you, I said it became 3 years. And so right now what we're facing is that 3rd year of appropriation for the TIRCP, where the additional years and that now 5-year really speaks to that program that was a 4-year timeline has now become a 5th year. And so, as I mentioned, if we are successful this year with this appropriation, 2/3 of the money is out the door. And so the only money that would exist is really the trace amounts in those out years for the smaller of the 2 programs. And so I did want to maybe clarify the heavy base of those funds still moving out on the 3-year timeline. We indicate the 5 years so that we don't go through in the presentation that difference between that 3 and that 5-year timeline. But that 5th year is really only germane to that smaller program.
Thanks. And you talked about, I think, $30 million that was for that this agency sees. I think that was the TIRCP money that MDRTC reallocated in late 2023. I just wanted to confirm with our CFO, Chuck Farmer, is that's money that we've already budgeted for?
We have a budget.
And it's not an additional $30 million that we haven't budgeted for.
Well, we have the 30 million. That's all we've budgeted for. And I just meant for this additional service.
Right, for Reimagine Metro. It's $30 million over basically, a total of 5 years. It's not 30 million and then another 30 million if it gets continued.
That's exactly right. And the now $2 billion that we're chasing, that would be additive money should we be successful. But speaking plainly, in this difficult budget environment, an appropriation of that size, a very, very heavy lift. But I would emphasize that one of the chief backers is the Senate Budget Committee Chair. If there was anyone who can help bring this together, it would be him. And so uphill battle, very strong ally that can really move mountains in the legislature. And so something that we'll be continuing to track and engaging on.
Do you have any sense of what BART and VTA and California are facing if that $2 billion is not allocated?
Yeah, at the highest of levels, because I'm not fluent in all of the details. What I understand is SFMTA and BART have already indicated their plans to scale back service to reduce their workforce. In fact, there was some reporting this week about SFMTA already making some cuts to workforce, certain managerial positions to address some of the fiscal challenges they're facing. I do know, however, that there is a very active conversation around additional self-help. And so to speak with a bit more specificity, there is an ongoing conversation around a self-help measure that would be authorized through state statute this year. The $2 billion and what it could afford that region is intended to be the stopgap between now, the monies that we have, and when that measure passes and the monies begin to flow. In the event that the $2 billion does not come together, there may be some further conversation around what can be done in the nearer term. I think that is going to be a challenge, but that is something that is a potential conversation. And I do know that at least one of the parties in San Francisco, SF Mayor Lurie, has indicated his interest in moving forward with a separate measure for the county only. That is not intended to be in place of a regional measure, but additive to, that could help provide some of that support. But right now, in the absence of new funds, cuts to both workforce and service are what's likely.
It sounds like very similar to what this agency is looking at. They're looking at some kind of a sales tax in the 2026 or 2028 timeframe.
That's exactly right.
Questions from the board? Any comments from the public? Any online? Thank you. Thank you both. Appreciate that.
As always, appreciate it.
On to our federal legislative update from CFM Advocate.
Thank you all very much. Joel Rubin with CFM Advocates. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here to get out of Washington, D.C. It's crazy. Chair Downing, board members, really, we've been working together since November of 2024. And just really appreciate your team's involvement and work product to get us to where we are today, putting together a federal agenda, working with your congressional delegation, setting up a tour where Chair Downing and Director Lind participated. Thank you for doing that. It's really important. Meeting with all 4 members of your congressional delegation, giving them a tour of your buildings, your facilities, and all of your needs. This is super helpful for our successful federal advocacy. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit today is, since it's the first time I'm presenting, talk about a little bit about our firm and our successes, go through that pretty quickly, then talk about your 2025 federal agenda, to be your funding request and policy priorities, and then look to what bus transit funding looks like in this upcoming or in this current Congress. Talk a little bit about what's going on in Washington State. So our firm's been around since 1990, 35 years old. We have expertise in local governments and public transportation. We represent the National Bus Coalition. I've been working with them for 10 years, and I'm really proud to have restored over $8.2 billion over that time period and multiple authorization bills and appropriation cycles through plus-up funding for bus transit systems. And that's funding that you all see through formula funds and also competitive grant. We represent 25 local governments, some water districts, nonprofits, transit agencies, ports, grain exporters. We're big in transportation, I guess. So we have a team of 9 lobbyists. We have a picture of 6 of them here. You'll probably interact with the top 4. So I worked on Capitol Hill from 2000 to 2005 as a legislative director for a congressman from Washington State. This transportation committee, budget committee, and small business committee assignment, and been working in the transportation space for some time. I joined CFM in 2006. It's been almost 20 years now, and worked closely with a lot of the transit advocates back in Washington, DC, and the particular committees that are important to transit. We just hired Kate Travis to our team. She was Secretary Buttigieg, Secretary Pete's special assistant, and she joined our team in February. Paige Strickler is based in our Portland office, and she can come down here at a moment's notice if there's a tour or anything you need on the Grand right away that doesn't, that's only an hour and a half flight for her. And then Kirby Garrett worked for Congressman Walden, Republican from Oregon. So we have a bipartisan team that can be here at a moment's notice, but also on the ground in Washington, DC. What we do for you all and many of our clients is go after funding. There's a number of grant opportunities that we work on for you. And we don't just advocate for grants. We actually help you put together a strategy behind your grant program. We have you meet with the federal agencies, congressional delegation to advocate for them. But more importantly, we got into grant writing a few years ago, and we've been really successful at it. It's a lot of work. It's somewhat tedious, but it's also a fun little puzzle we like to get accomplished. And the record of success that you'll see on the next slide shows why that's really important. We also work on the appropriation side for earmarks and submitting, helping your system submit earmark applications. We do all the drafting of those, review the strategy with your team, and then ultimately submit it to the congressional delegation and advocate for those earmark projects as well. Legislative initiatives, working on things that are important policy-wise, coordinating with your state, federal folks, state lobbyists, and at the national level, working with the Bus Coalition, CTAA, and APTA to coordinate your legislative strategy to make sure that you all are in the know and are pushing the buttons at the right time. And then strategic communications and positioning, making sure that we're saying the right things to the right people at the right time. And the successes have been pretty good for us. We're proud of them. Secured over $416 million in the last 4 years for our clients. This does not include the largest mega project that we secured for the city of Vancouver in Washington State of $1.6 billion. Our clients are average 62 to 1 return on investment. We are the only firm in the country that has written and secured 9 build raise grants in 9 years. I'm really proud of that. The 30-page applications, it takes a lot of work, a lot of advocacy, a lot of lobbying and understanding what the changing administration's priorities are. And we're really proud of that success. We secured $36 million for 2 transit clients over the last 3 years. And Salem is the only transit system in the country that got 3 grants in a row in that bus facility program. And we have a 100% success rating for our clients when going after earmarked funds. So let's talk about you. So we've been working with your team on putting together some project priorities and some policy priorities, and we call this your federal agenda. And we are going after earmarks and grants, working with your congressional delegation. And these are the projects that are on your list as of right now. This is a living, breathing document. But we've done tours. Corey's been back to Washington, DC and advocated for these projects. The South County Operations and Maintenance Facility is one of your larger requests of the $40 million grant through the Bus and Bus Facility Program, which should have opened on April 15th, but the Trump administration has delayed its opening. We're hoping that opens any day now, but you'll be going after a large construction design engineering application for that project. But we're also seeking an earmark funding from their congressional delegation of $3 million to get you through design engineering property acquisition for that project as well. Really cool, exciting project. It's a safety, economic development, and quality of life project for your community. Transit vehicle replacement. We're looking to replace 6 vehicles that are operating 9 years past their useful life. So seeking a $720,000 grant and or earmark from the FTA or your congressional delegation. Your radio systems are really old. I think it's 2010 radio system that needs to be upgraded. You're losing signal in some of your areas, and your bus operators need to use their cell phone at some point in time, which is crazy. So we're looking to get some FTA grant funding or earmark funding for that as well. Your operations management system, you'll probably notice too, 2009, that system was installed and that needs to be upgraded too. And then transit security grant improvements. If you look at the facility over there, there's too much access to the public and people can get in. If you have your CNG facility, but also you're going to be having a hydrogen facility over there, and we want to make sure it's protected. So those are the grant and earmark projects that we're working together on. And then on the policy priorities, it's sustaining bus and bus facility funding, in addition to the STIC program and generally bus transit funding nationally. Supporting the extension of the alternative fuels tax credit. Y'all receive about $300,000 a year in benefit from that tax credit. We're looking to extend that moving forward because it did expire at the end of last year. And then property acquisition reform. What transit systems need to do now is, if you're looking to acquire property, is go through the NEPA process before property acquisition. And we're looking to make it similar to the Federal Highway Administration, where you can buy the property first and then go through a property acquisition. Buy the property first, then go through NEPA afterward, because it causes a lot of problems by going through NEPAs on multiple sites before you can acquire them. That's your federal agenda. I don't know if folks had any questions about the project or policy items before I go on to more bigger picture discussion. Yes.
Could you speak to what the earmark environment is these days?
Yes. So in 2018, Congress brought back the earmark process. Actually, sorry, 2020. After a 10-year hiatus, they eliminated earmarks in 2010. Republicans are in charge of the House and the Senate, and they are continuing to open up the earmark process on both the House and Senate side. And they're limiting overall earmarks to 1% of the federal budget. And it's about $15 billion per year that they're earmarking. So it's a very good opportunity to work directly with your congressional delegation to seek federal funding and submit transit projects through that process. Is there anything in particular you're...
Well, I'm just wondering, with the federal budget and the state that it's in, when that's just continuing resolution territory,
right?
Is there still a window for earmarks to get in?
Right. So what happened in the FY25, which is the current year we're in, is they did a year-long continuing resolution. There was $15 billion in earmarks that were included in there. And then because of the CRA, all those earmarks went away. But Republicans wanted to, and Democrats wanted to continue the process. So they're opening it up again for FY26. So one of the challenges you have is, if you didn't have an earmark in FY25, a lot of the congressional delegation may be looking to fund projects that they put in the bills in FY25 and carrying them forward into FY26. So that puts you a little bit of a disadvantage because you weren't in the FY25 process. But you have a new senator, you have 2 House members. So there might be an opportunity to just slip something in through that process. Thank you.
Yes. What's the the likelihood of a majority of that earmark, those earmarks going to like red districts and red states, since they do control?
Right. Great question. So basically what's happening right now is the Republicans are getting about 65% of the earmarks and Democrats are getting 35%. So Republicans are getting a outsized share because they're in the majority in the House and Senate.
So our chances of getting like a $40 million grant are very, very.
So that's a grant versus the earmarks.
I'm sorry, if you would have done a project earmarked like a project like that, it would probably most likely not happen.
Right. So earmark caps generally around $3 to $5 million in total size per project. So we try to keep it within that range. And the grants, you can go after bigger dollar amounts for those projects.
So what are the projects we're putting in for?
Those are the projects that you're submitted. So
no, I mean for earmarks.
Right. So the South County operations, paratransit vehicles, and radio system modernization.
So the smaller ones.
Correct.
Okay.
Just clarifying, you said it was $3 to $5 million cap. The first one is $40 million.
Right. So $3 to $5 million cap on the earmark side of things, and on the grant side, it can be much bigger than that. And so you're going after $40 million bus and bus facility grant. Yes.
Can a project take money from both categories?
Yes. So we have a good list of projects here that hit a different range of different priorities. You have projects in Congresswoman Lofgren's district, which is the Watsonville O&M facility. You know, projects in Panetta's district here. So we're trying to get as many opportunities for funding as possible for your transit system.
Okay, that's the state level. Is believe that our validation needs letters from cities in the county in support of these projects, but pretty much on board. They don't need to be persuaded. It's really a question of their work in DC.
All letters are always good to have. They're required as part of the earmark process that you need to have at least 2 to 3 letters of support from the community. So we have some of those, but the more, the better. So we have templates written up if we want to add to the pot of earmark letters of support and grant letters of support for your projects.
So if you can work with our staff to get those out to the board members, if they're member agencies to any of those.
That would be great. Yes, absolutely.
What about letters from outside of governmental agencies? When I think of the paratransit vehicles,
Yes.
are there organizations outside of the government that would do it?
And we did.
Job to some of our Paracruz clients to submit letters for STO and assaying the city and county officials.
Maybe look at all of them, see which organizations.
Yeah, so as we've gone through as staff and with CFM, we've identified who we want letters from, and staff has gone directly to staff, city, and county. Board members, but we can do that as well.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say that I remember, I mean, I've been on this board for a long time and, I mean, we had a really good relationship with Diane Feinstein and she was always ready for us. I don't feel like we have
Who's that again?
Diane Feinstein. I mean, she was always advocating for us and, when we needed a letter or whatever we needed, she was always there for us. Do we have that relationship with any of our senators? Like we had at that level with her?
No, not yet, but I mean, we're working on it, get there with them. So for me, it's a new relationship, that I'm working on building with it, but we'll get there for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, I mean, I think we need to start building those relationships to get back to kind of like, I remember when we used to go to DC and she was like, what do you need from me? And we would get what she would do whatever we needed. And so, I think those relationships are really important. And I just want to get back to this real quick. Sorry. So the top 2 are grants that you're applying for. The bottom 3 are going to be earmarks.
Yeah, so the top one, South Operations and Maintenance Facility,
Great.
$40 million grant, but you're also going after a $3 million earmark.
Okay.
That earmark is could cover planning, design, engineering, and property acquisition. The $40 million could cover everything.
And then the paratransit's either or.
We're gonna be submitting the same thing there. It's a grant and an earmark request. The thought there is that I think someone brought this up a little bit. The Trump administration, I'm a little worried about how they're going to treat applicants in California and some other blue states. So going after a $40 million grant, I think under the previous administration, I think you all would have been in a really good position. So that's why we're also putting forward the $720,000 grant for the paratransit vehicles. One, it's diesel vehicles versus zero emissions. So I'm curious how the Trump administration will fund. There's the low-no program, which there's about $1 billion per year for low-no emissions. But they'll probably do a lot of the low versus the no emission, which would be like CNG projects. But there is set asides for just general bus and bus facilities and paratransit funding. So we're trying to be strategic about going after a big project like the O&M facility, but then also giving the Trump administration something to, if they can't do that, go after a smaller request for something they're more likely to fund. And then the radio systems is an earmark request as well.
Realistically, what do you feel like this is going to be attainable outcome list?
So when we're putting a federal agenda together, we don't anticipate that we're going to get everything. What our strategy is, this is a long-term game. If we get one, great. If we get two, that's amazing. So 2 projects a year would be amazing. It would be really good.
That'd be such.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is give your congressional delegation as many opportunities as possible to fund projects, but then also going after the grant funding streams. So you really have 5 bites of the apple, which is a lot of good opportunity. I will say this year is a bit more challenging. One, because you have a Trump administration that might not fund as many projects in blue states. But 2, you had that earmark issue where a lot of the funds in FY25 were set aside for projects and they're going to be carried forward to FY26. So there's less room for you all to get into that FY26 process. But with that said, we're going to do everything in our power to be creative, to think about ways for your congressional delegation to help you and to see how we can work with the Trump administration, get you some FTA funding. Generally, the Federal Transit Administration has been less partisan in their application, their grant awards. There's always politics in play. So that's why we were thinking a $720,000 grant for paratransit vehicles. It's more milquetoast type of projects that the Trump administration might just fund. And, oh, yes. Yes.
This might be an impossible question, but when in Trump's first term, we had a delegation that went to Washington looking for transit money, and we were in a meeting at the FTA when a representative from Trump's administration, the meeting took it over and made really clear that the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, didn't believe in public transit, getting out of the business. And they weren't talking capital versus operations. It's like, you know, cars. People, what do you need public transit for? And it was pretty outrageously out there. And I'm just wondering whether you have a sense that they are that absolute in the second administration, or that at this point it's a little more tempered, or what it's a hard question to answer.
No, I got a good one. So, in working with the Bus Coalition in 2018, the Trump administration, yes, there was some resistance we saw from FTA about transit. In their FY18 Trump budget, they included a plus up for bus transit for the first time in the history of the program of $250 million. The Trump administration did a plus up of the bus and bus facility program in FY18. Despite all of the reluctance, you know, I think a lot of the transit is seen as more of an urban issue. And I think the CIG program, the New Starts program, anything rail is going to be a target of the administration. But our argument is buses are in every district of the country. They're in Republican rural districts, they're in suburban districts, and they're in urban districts. That's what makes us unique in terms of Bus Coalition. Our messaging to Congress is this is helping all of our economies. This is getting seniors to their doctors. This is getting students to school. This is helping the economy grow in all regions of the country. So that's the unique message that we used during the last Trump administration. We did feel like it was successful. I think it is a little bit different now. I think there's some more people from the Heritage Foundation that are at the Office of Management and Budget that are going to be looking a little bit more skeptically about transit as a whole. But that's going to be our job, is to separate ourselves and make sure that bus transit in particular, the value benefit proposition for the Trump administration is about economic development, it's about jobs. And that's how we're going to try to separate ourselves. But I am concerned about it for sure. And I will say the transportation reauthorization bill, which I'll talk about on the next slide, you do need bipartisan support for it, and still in the Senate. You need 60 votes. I do think the Transportation Infrastructure Committee leadership wants to have a bipartisan bill come out of the House. And to do that, Congressman Larson, the lead Democrat on the committee, said, when he was asked, what's your number one priority for the transportation bill? He said transit. So if the transit numbers aren't where they need to be, I just don't think they're going to get a bill done. And so the bills needs to happen by September 2026. If there isn't that level of bipartisan cooperation, I think that gets extended. Potentially Democrats take over the House in 2026, starting 2027. And then you have a different negotiation where Democrats would have more power in the House to put a bill in. That's a very long answer.
That's very helpful.
So I think it's the last slide. So your bus story is very similar to the story that bus transit systems are telling nationwide. So the reason the bus coalition was formed in 2013 was the transportation reauthorization bill. I'll do this quickly. The transportation reauthorization bill in 2012 cut bus funding by 57%. We went from $1 billion a year in the bus and bus facility program to $420 million. It's a huge cut. And that went to the big rail systems, but we won't talk about that. So the bus coalition was formed to say, what happened here? We need to restore these funds to the bus and bus facility program. We're ultimately there, but what the intervening years, but until the infrastructure law passed with reauthorization numbers of $2 billion per year, basically double what we were before, the impacts to buses were huge. The percentage of buses operating past useful life increased 56% from 2009 to 2023. The percentage of buses operating past 15 years increased 103%. We have really old buses on the road. But in addition to that, we went from 75,000 buses nationwide to 55,000. So we have fewer buses and we have older buses. And that's all because of those cuts that were made in 2012 that lasted through the infrastructure law in 2021, 2022. So we're playing a lot of makeup, and there's transit systems like yours all across the country that are telling this story. We need more resources. We need to sustain bus funding at $2 billion, $2.2 billion per year as where it was in the infrastructure law. So I know that you have an aged fleet and you're trying to increase the size of your fleet, but that story fits into the broader narrative. As you're talking to your members of Congress about your needs, that's part of the story. Because the challenge that we have, and one of the headwinds with the transportation reauthorization bill, is Republicans are going to say, we gave you historic levels of investment in transit as a whole in 2021, November 21, so it's really 22. And your ridership numbers are still not where they should be. They're coming back, but they're still below pandemic levels. And what we say is the cuts that we saw in 2012, it took about 2 years to see those cuts start impacting transit systems. Same on the reverse end. The infrastructure law passed in 2022. It takes about 2 to 3 years to see buses on the road and the improvements to service and ridership. So yes, we don't have all the data to show that ridership is back. We had COVID, we have all these challenges, but if we can tell the story about what you all are doing and how the infrastructure law is benefiting your system, your riders, then we're flattening the curve when it comes to older buses, increasing the size of fleets, and then ultimately providing better service for communities across the country. So that's part of the story, but we do have headwinds because we don't have those numbers yet in terms of ridership. They're not, bus systems have a better story to tell than rail systems. Bus systems are close to pre-pandemic levels. Rail is not, but we have those headwinds when we're talking to Republicans in Congress. We also have Republicans that are just generally skeptical of transit in general. But there are opportunities. I know there's been a lot of frustrations when it comes to transit systems about regulations and red tape. This administration is going to be looking for opportunities to streamline regulations. And so we're looking to take advantage of those opportunities as well. There's a small chance, I put this together about 2 weeks ago, that we were hearing from the House T&I committee, there's a chance that they might be earmarking the reauthorization bill. That would mean much bigger earmarks, 20, 30 million, $40 earmark levels in the reauthorization bill that happens every 5 years. I'm hearing that may not still be in play on the Senate side, so I'm assuming that might be the case of the House side, but we'll see. But if they do earmark it, it makes it a lot easier for them to pass a bill. And it also gives you an opportunity to get a $40 million earmark for your operations and maintenance facility. Timing, the T&I committee and the House is working to accept policy requests now. Their deadline is April 30th. They're going to be trying to mark up a bill in the House T&I committee by the August recess. It's an aggressive timeline. I'm skeptical, but we'll see. Senate EPW committee is trying to work on an aggressive timeline to mark something up as well. They do the highway side. Banking committee that does transit hasn't announced a timeline yet, but they're all trying to do something this year. We'll see if that happens. Ultimately, if transit funding levels aren't where they need to be, I think the bipartisanship isn't there. In this toxic environment in DC, it's very likely that other outside events could poison the well when it comes to compromise and bipartisan legislation. But we always need to be ready to act when the bills move. So they don't need to do anything until September 2026. I've been around Washington DC for a long time. They've never done anything early. So I'd be very surprised if they did something this year. But a lot depends on the political dynamics, the level of bipartisanship when it comes to the transportation and transit and highway programs. So we'll keep an eye on that. DC update. I'm over on time here. So they paused and eliminated a number of grant programs. We're keeping a close eye on that. Like I said at the beginning, April 15th, the Trump administration was required by statute to release the bus and bus facility program. It's April 20, whatever it is today. It's still not open. They know, we've talked to FTA. They know they're trying to get it out. It doesn't seem like they're not going to put it out. But there's going to be a lot of question marks that potentially could be answered when the Trump administration releases their FY26 budget in May, and that's going to decimate a lot of agencies. And so we're going to see where the priorities are or aren't. And I'm wondering how infrastructure is impacted by that budget release. You would think the Trump administration, who wants to build things, would look at infrastructure as one area not to cut as much and maybe even invest more in. We'll see. We had a lot of infrastructure weeks under the first Trump administration. Debt limit. Hope you're glad you're sitting down. We have a $35 trillion debt. They need to basically increase the credit card debt limit on that by July or September. It's a moving target of this year. And Republicans are trying to do that in this tax cut reconciliation bill that Trump calls Big Beautiful Tax Cut Bill, where he wants to extend the 2017 tax cuts that cost about $4 trillion over 10 years. He also wants to add no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, and whatever other goodies he talked about during the campaign trail. That would be upwards of $6 trillion in tax cuts. And we're have $35 trillion debt. They're trying the Republican Freedom Caucus, which is the more conservative, fiscally responsible portion of the Republican Party, is saying we need at least $1.5 trillion in spending cuts. That's still $4 or $5 trillion increased debt, but they're really going about for $1.5 trillion in tax and spending cuts, that's where the conversation's about Medicaid cuts, food stamp cuts, and all of these other programs that are on the chopping block. It's going to be very interesting to see with Republicans having a 3-seat majority in the House, 4-seat majority in the House, and 3-seat in the Senate, how they're going to be able to potentially cut those very popular programs and get this bill done. But Trump has been doing a pretty good job of cajoling his troops to support his provisions so far. So we'll see that over the next couple of months and see if they can get a bill passed. Tariffs, crazy. And then we have the budget that's coming out in May. And so that'll kick off the appropriations process. They'll mark up their appropriations bills. You'll know whether you have an earmark for your projects in the June to August timeframe. And that's will be in a House bill or a Senate bill. And then they'll hopefully finalize those bills by the end of 2026. Sorry for going over a little bit. There's a lot to cover.
Good information.
Yeah, thank you.
More questions from the board? Do you have any comments from the public? Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Don Kermay and I recently met with representatives from SEIU and a trainer from PERG. Together, we're developing collaborative training sessions that will be conducted with management and union leaders. Metro's One Ride at a Time Monarch bus made the front page of the Sentinel on April 16th and is included in this month's news clips. The first segment of the Bus on Shoulder project on Highway 1 was recently completed with segment 2 expected at the end of 2026, ultimately providing 5 miles of operational corridor. Although the red paint is visible, Metro will not begin service until both segments are complete. Current efforts include finalizing the concept of operations and an MOU, developing operator training protocols, and collaborating on public information campaign to manage expectations regarding signage and usage timelines. So we had a meeting yesterday with RTC to talk about the project and talk about our approach going forward, and how we're going to be collaborating with CHP and Caltrans on this moving forward. So,
Question of it. Yep. It's in Metro's interest, if they're stacking, and I don't know what it is, that those two entrances, to think about some kind of metering light operation that would really allow the buses to make a difference when they get from there. So I would hope that we'd start some, if we haven't already done so, start discussions with RTC about, and then the county, over the appropriate, if it's in Capitol, I'm not sure where they are. About how we might make that happen. Because what's happening now, if you watch it, they're coming up Highway 1. There's a steady stream of cars, and both at SoCal and again at 41st, that they're taking over the highway and they're running straight forward, and the people standing, they want to stopped. But if there was a metering light system, it'd make the highway move. I mean, again, it's not you can't make everybody get there faster. But what I'm thinking about is it's going to be such a great thing when people are able to say, take the bus, you'll get there. It won't be a lot, but you get there 15 minutes quicker taking the bus than driving your car down the highway. So I think working on that metering light possibility, again, it will depend, is there stacking room on the entrance thing and so forth. But it's really worth investigating that.
yeah. My first meeting last year with them, I brought up that because I have concerns about how we're going to make it through the on-ramp and off-ramp, especially the on-ramp without that. The consultant that RTC has feels confident that we can do it without it. But John and I brought up the point that California on-ramps and off-ramps are unlike any that I've ever seen. They're short and tight. They come right out of the neighborhoods and right onto the road, especially, think about SoCal. There's no really an on-ramp. So how do we deal with that sort of thing? So yeah, we'll continue to prosper that. The mobile hydrogen fueling station will be completed in the first half of May, and testing should be completed by the end of the fiscal year. Employee training sessions on operation of the fueler will begin after it's commissioned. So we're planning future classes to all employees on hydrogen safety, as well as we'll be working with law enforcement and the fire department to coordinate training for them with the new mobile fueler once it's installed. The current plan is to begin placing hydrogen buses into revenue service in September after all the training has been completed.
Quick question on that. We're gonna have a ribbon cutting.
Earlier, someone from the public asked, it was online, where are the hydrogen, which routes are the hydrogen buses running on? I'm assuming we're mixing it into all of our routes. It's not, we don't schedule a particular kind of bus for a particular route.
It depends on the mileage.
Yeah, so we're working on that right now, trying to assess truly what the mileage is going to be. We have what the sales people have told us, but we're going to do our own testing, and then we'll be able to identify which routes they'll be able to.
If I could ask, when the new buses are in service in September, will that have a corresponding service increase?
We hope so. Well, at least some. We're right now we're pessimistically optimistic. Is that right? About being able to restore some of the service that's really going to depend on where we're at with our maintenance team and their ability to service them and keep up with them. So the answer is we hope so. Thank you. The permanent hydrogen fueling station design has started and it will take approximately 5 months, with construction expected to commence in the fall, and it's anticipated to be operational in the first half of 2026. The Pacific Station housing project is moving along nicely and is still expected to be completed in 2026. For the Watsonville Transit Center affordable housing project, we'll be applying for an affordable housing and sustainable communities funding next month with the city of Watsonville and Mid-Penn. Working on schematic design is ongoing. Construction is estimated to begin in 2027 and be complete by 2029. Cruz staff attended and provided information at the Transition and Resource Fair at the Harbor High School. The event provided an opportunity for students, families, and educators to explore post-high school and adult transition services. On April 22nd, Metro provided free fare system-wide to celebrate Earth Day. Metro also participated in Santa Cruz Earth Day on April 19th and will join the Watsonville Earth Day on April 27th. Metro will provide eco-friendly games, fun activities, and great prizes. May 3rd is the Kids Day event, which is held downtown in Santa Cruz from noon to 4 p.m. Metro will provide games like Cornhole, Giant Connect 4, and Spin the Wheel at the booth. May 9th is a Community Health Trust Health Fair from 2 to 6 p.m. and held at the Watsonville City Plaza. This is a family-friendly event offering health information, screenings, community resources, and activities. May 21st is the Touch a Truck event held at Depot Hill from noon to 2 p.m. This event will showcase public works vehicles as a way to engage youth interest. Thank you to the operations and our operators who have been tabling at Cabrillo College campus and Aptos in Watsonville to help promote the benefits of Metro for the upcoming transit fee vote. At the end of the month, our operators have been at both campuses weekly, as well as the Watsonville Farmers Market to speak to students. Last week, our mechanics received training on the Gillick battery electric buses, and in June they will receive training on the new Flyer hydrogen fuel cell buses. Since our last board meeting, we have hired two dispatcher schedulers, one senior accounting technician, one mechanic, and one vehicle service worker. And next week on the 29th will be 1 year since I first arrived, and it's gone by fast. Been fun. Metro is an awesome organization. It benefits all of us in Santa Cruz County, and it's all due to the employees that we have here who are amazing and represent us well every single day. That's the end of my report.
I have the three questions. There are three topics. Yes. And maybe the Cabrillo College. How's that looking? I don't know, you guys.
The tabling?
Or like, I heard students talking about it. Are they thinking about?
They are.
I mean, wanting
Do you
to.
know that we have a push for the Metro? We have about 5 or 6 clubs that are focused only on getting out the vote for continuing Metro, more for the sustainability aspect of it. And the community. A lot of people find that they find community on riding the bus and the ability to kind of relax a little bit. So we are having that conversation. There are folks who are local. I live down the street from Cabrillo. I shouldn't have to pay for this. So you do have a growing number of those kinds of folks. And we'll just work out, if we do get a contract, we'll just work out how to exempt certain groups, depending on what that would look like on the vote. So if I give 500 people and 400 of them say, yes, I'm not exempting them. I'm just waiting, but we'll work on what we can.
I remember that being the problem last time. Like the people were like, "Why don't ride the bus? Why am I paying for it?" And so I was wondering if that was the same problem.
It's we're going to continue that conversation only because the student fee handbook allows for us to charge anybody once a vote happens, which is why we have the student body vote. So if the student body votes and they agree, we can charge all students regardless of the access. I mean, regardless of use, it's about access. And so in that regard, I do exempt folks who are using Metro Cruz because they are already using the service. I exempt folks who are out of the state and taking an online class. So there are rooms to exempt.
Okay, good. No, thank you. Appreciate that. Because I remember last time all hands were on deck. I mean, the unions were out there. Everyone was out there.
Yeah.
Board members trying to get this passed because it was really tight. It was tight. And then my second question is on the RTC earlier. You brought up a question. I'm curious to see how much more money we have lost over the recent years from receiving from our RTC. And is that affecting us? Do we have enough money?
And
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the total amount. I know, for instance, there is a grant that was awarded and, 4.5, I think it's 4.5 million was, and there was for our hydrogen bus purchases. Not able to get that. And
what do you mean?
it's a long conversation, but, we essentially, we were told, I don't know who told us that FHWA maybe, said that funding couldn't be used for transit, even though it had been approved and part of the grant process with RTC. FHWA said money has been awarded, that RTC needs to find a way to get that money to Metro. So we've had that conversation and we're continuing the conversation about how we're being made whole on that. Because that did leave a whole deficit for us.
I feel like, I don't know, I mean, money's here, I mean, has there been a lot of money being diverted to other programs from money that should have been going to Metro? I'm really concerned about our budget. We're getting hits like that from being up in other places. And then it affects, our own personal service. And I know we were trying to get to 15s. I mean, it's just, so, what can we do to not lose money?
Yeah, a few things I can think of are, as already mentioned, it was the 2 million out of the 30 million TIRSIP funding that instead of coming to Metro for operations has been dedicated to, I think, the next phase of rail planning. If we choose to proceed with it, I'd have to double check with our executive director if it's already been spent or if ultimately we chose not to proceed with the next phase of the environmental for the train, if we should reallocate it to Metro operations. That's something to look at, but that's where it's currently allocated. I think there was some discussion around some state money where it's traditionally gone to Metro, and we at the RTC allocated some of that to Lift Line, and instead of that coming to this agency. And then this 4.5 million, I believe that was part of the mega grant, so the phase 3 segment of the highway, which we're at RTC, we're currently trying to get, there's over $100 million from the state to kind of complete funding for that next phase, but we got an initial allocation from the federal government, which included 4.5 million for zero emission buses. But it sounds like just there's a technicality that money has to go directly to RTC. We can't receive it here at Metro, and so we have to basically have that conversation at the RTC of, okay, well, this is now in the RTC's total budget. Where can we take it from to bring that money to Metro as was kind of outlined and intended? Ultimately, I think maybe it's probably a good thing that keeps the mega grant safer for us, right? If the Trump administration doesn't like transit or is looking for places to cut, in my mind, it makes that 30 million that we got for mega safer because it's technically all for highway. And so, but yeah,
I'm also kind of curious, you just 2 million being taken out. How are RTC representatives voting in those situations? Are they supporting those cuts to Metro? I mean, I'd like to get maybe someone do a report to us on how the representation is happening at RTC, and where we stand on things. I mean, because we're here scrambling for funding, and then we're giving it away in other places. I mean, that's frustrating.
Just for the history, I think that was actually ultimately a recommendation from CEO Tree at the time. Went to try to balance some community.
They all know it's there, so okay. So, and then my last question is,
there also was an attempt last year that initially to move a huge amount of money from the Metro into the county roads, but that was basically sent back, and we were successful. It was all behind the scenes. None of it took place in public meeting. In the end, I think that worked out well for us.
And I think that too, people will just feel like, oh, it's easy to take the Metro funding because there's not going to be a huge outcry about it if we took it from other places, So I understand that, but at the end of the day, we're not trying to balance the budget and move things along. So, and then is there still a conversation about the ballot measure? Is that?
We'll be bringing that. We have a meeting next week with our consultants in the Maxville. We're going to move forward to the board.
On that note, do you have a general idea of what election cycle would be targeting?
I mean, we've been planning for November of 26. That's, we're still aiming.
It's a fighting hard to keep other people off of it.
Were you finished?
Okay.
I have that's just a part of input. Years ago, when I first served, we were talking about bringing classes to Cabrillo, and I understand that conversation is happening. Cabrillo? Who's having
As far as like maintenance.
Oh.
that would-
We're working with our CTE department for some courses.
We've already met with them,
Annabelle?
and we're looking to create courses
Thank you.
and also hopefully apprenticeship. So
Thank you. I wanted to address that because it was about 3 or 4 years ago where I asked for that to happen, and I'm glad I'm still there to see it come to fruition. So thank you.
Do we have any public comment?
I just want to say I wanted to thank Margaret too earlier, Margaret and Freddie, because I've been working with our city and after the last conversation and I appreciate that. So thank you.
So our next board meeting will be held on Friday, May 16th. Did you have a comment?
Yes.
About the CEO report?
Yes. Hello, Ben Pinko, bus operator, and
Can you speak louder?
yes, you had asked about tabling at Cabrillo and how that's looking. Is it all right if I comment on that question? So I have gone twice to do outreach for Metro, and it has been really excellent as far as public response, student response. Every single student that we've talked to has, as soon as they hear what we're there for, they're like on board. They either use the bus or know people who use the bus. And we've been encouraging people, even if they do drive, still vote yes, because it supports all those students who do rely on public transit. And we've also had several organizations within school, Cody from the Student Senate and some other smaller groups. I don't remember actual names or abbreviations, but they grabbed several flyers and said that they were going to distribute them to their team. And then as well, we've had several groups of differently able students with their I guess their teachers coming by and speaking with us and being very thankful for the service that we provide and saying that they will vote yes. And yeah, I just wanted to thank Alton Northcutt for being here and for all the students who appreciate our service, and we're very happy to provide that service. So it seems to be in the right direction.
Say that part because I have the least effort, but so the groups were the Stroke and Disability Center, our Interclub Council, our Diddy Club. Cody is a student trustee who serves on the Student Senate. Our Student Senate, of course, is behind it, and our Sustainability Council and our EV Club. Those three groups.
Comment?
Sorry?
Can I also make a public comment?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I really appreciate the work that Alta is doing there at Rio too. It's amazing to hear the amount of support that the students are getting. But I also wanted to say that I feel a little disheartened that UCSC is not getting the same treatment. I'm not entirely sure why there's a disparity that is existing between the Cabrillo students and the UCSC students. Everyone is a student there, and there's different people who make up the constituency of the UCSC ridership. It's not just students like me who are young, who are between the ages of 18 and 22, but there's also a lot of student parents who have children who can't make it here because not only do they have classes, but they also work, and they have a lot of it. And those are their makeup is a lot of Black, Latino, Asian parents, single mothers who work tirelessly to support their children. They have usually like 2 to 3 kids, and they do they do it all alone. There's UCSC doesn't really support them in their power, and there's an erasure of their population on the campus. And I would also say that there's a lot of students who are disabled, who use wheelchair, who depend on wheelchair access. And there's already a big, I mean, it's UCSC, so there's a lot of hills and it's really hard to get around. And a lot of the people that do get around on campus rely on Metro service to move from one end of the college to another, just because of how hard it is to just move around on campus too. These are students and voices who don't get heard. And I really want to emphasize that when I said that I wanted to encourage more participation by having more access to these Metro board meetings, that I wasn't just talking about the Metro Times, but also just seeing like which voices are existing that aren't being represented here in this space. I mean, everybody, as we can see, when we talk about the middle schools and when we talk about Cabrillo, okay, I'll keep it short, is that we are getting a lot of, is that there's a lot of students that you guys care about. And it's the same people that exist at UCSC. And I also wanted to say one last bit, that we really support the workers and the labor behind the Metro board. There's a lot of drivers, bus drivers, that I know it might seem on surface level that we don't support them, or like there might be some kind of like content between the groups. But I also wanted to say that like, if you've noticed the support for the UPD unions and the ASME unions, who are also.
You've gone over 3 minutes.
I know, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say.
Talk with staff.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So our next meeting will be on Friday, the 16th. That's a little early in the month because of the Memorial Day holiday. At 9 a.m. here at our administrative office located at 110 Vernon Street in Santa Cruz. Thank you for attending, and we are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.